Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion, possibly the only podcast that covers both horse racing and cricket. Although today we are diving into the Olympics, specifically the 1960 Summer Olympics. As part of my What Was It Like To series, I had the pleasure of speaking with Ann Ewer, who represented Great Britain in the 100 metres at the Rome Games. I visited Ann at her home in Norfolk before our podcast chat, and the clip you are about to hear captures Ann's joy at being selected for the British Olympic team. Enjoy the show.
Well, the thing that I really remember is that I ran the White City in the British Games in the 200 metres, and if I'd come third, I would have gone to the Olympics in third place, the 200 metres, but I didn't. So I came fourth. So I thought, that's it. I've blown it. And Sunday, this was a Saturday, Sunday morning, I had a phone call from the Olympic organisers to say I had been chosen to go in the 100 metres. I was just so excited. And my mum and dad, I knew, had gone to the Hounslow warehouse, I think it was. No other way I could get in touch with them. So the hotel found the telephone number and I rang the warehouse to say, could you find my mum and dad? Because I want to tell them this, that I'd got a place in the Olympic Games. And they tannoyded it all the way round Hounslow warehouse to Mr. and Mrs. Jenner, who were there. Perhaps they'd like to know. And I phoned Tony, who was my boyfriend, or I was engaged to him then, and he was just going to take off and go on a trip or something in the RAF. So I remember that as if it was yesterday. Okay.
What was it like to run at the 1960 Summer Olympics in Rome?
It was hard work, and we trained every day except Saturdays, and my coach was in Rome, so he took me out a couple of times. Overall, it was a great reward for 5 years of training.
Thank you very much, Anne. Let's find out where it all started for you. Did you always like running as a child?
I started when I was very young, at primary school. So I ran as a junior for the county and the school when I was about 8. So that was the start. I was born in 1941. My brother, John, was 2 years older than me, and my father was in the Navy, and we lived in Portsmouth. When I was 4 years old, my father was posted to Singapore. My mother went with him, and I went to live with my mum's mum and dad in Pudsey, and John went to live with my dad's mum and dad in Porchester. Now, my nana had a friend who was a clairvoyant, and she visualised running shoes in the hedge and saw a future for me in athletics. How weird is that? My parents returned when I was 7 years old. The family was reunited and we returned to Portsmouth. After a year, John went to Holbrook, a boarding school for sons of naval personnel, and my father left the Navy when I was 8 years old. That's when I went to Maidenhead with my parents, who took the job of assistant master and matron at a boys' home. I went to a primary school just down the road. This is where I discovered running. I ran for the school and county as a junior.
And this was Hertfordshire, would that be?
No, Maidenhead. I don't know what county Maidenhead is. That wasn't Hertfordshire, because I wasn't there very long. But we did move to Hertfordshire because my father took a job in personnel at ICI in Welwyn Garden City when I was 10. And we moved to the village of Welwyn, and I went to St Mary's Secondary School. And a teacher called Mr Thomas really encouraged my running. And I won the individual cup for athletics 2 years running and broke records of previous students in the 100 yards and the 100 yards hurdles, and then continued to break my own records. When I was 13, my father found a coach for me at Welwyn Athletic Club called Harry Wilson. He subsequently went on to train Steve Ovett and Zola Budd. I don't know whether you remember them.
I certainly remember him coaching Steve Ovett. He was well known for coaching the Olympic gold medalist.
Yes. And the athletic club was based in Welwyn Garden City at Hanside Playing Fields. It was also the home of the City Rugby Club. So I was able to use the club facilities, and I trained on the rugby pitch and competed with men, road running with them in the winter. I was invited to run in sports days, which were handicap races. So I was always placed at the back of the field, which I loved, as I could focus on catching them up and then overtaking them. Some of the races were over 300 yards. That was my favourite distance. When I was 15 years old, I entered a county W3A's championship. I won a medal, but I had to give it back when there were complaints from other clubs that I was too young. I was not disappointed, though, because Welwyn Athletic Club presented me with a replacement. August, I entered a special 100 yards race for juniors at the National Championships held at Chiswick. 120 entrants were reduced to 6 finalists. I was slow out of the blocks, but an inspired burst over the last 20 yards took me to second place, establishing me as Britain's number 2 junior sprinter.
And I just wanted to go back and mention your parents. They must have been a big support for you in those years.
Yes, they were. My dad drove me everywhere because I went to handicap races, as I say, and he drove me all over the place. He was very, very supportive.
And Harry Wilson, what was he like as a coach?
Oh, well, he was smashing. He was very understanding, and very clear with his teaching of what I had to do. And he didn't get cross with me at all, so that was good. I'd like to say that in May 1957, I represented Hertfordshire against Norfolk, Bedfordshire and Suffolk in the 100 yards and 220 yards. So that was interesting when I was reading that.
And now you live in Norfolk. Have they forgiven you now?
Well, I don't suppose that anyone's alive who remembers that. And my dad also, he helped me buy a scooter, a Vespa scooter, and to get to Cinder racetracks, because we didn't have one in Welwyn Garden City. And this particular day, I drove my scooter to Harry's house in Welwyn Garden City, parked it at the curb, and we drove on to Watford Cinder track to train. And when I came back, my scooter was flattened. Apparently, a coal lorry had parked behind it and then driven off, forgetting it was there. So drove over my scooter. Now, I was so fortunate because a few weeks before, the Daily Worker, you won't remember that newspaper, but they interviewed me and took photographs of me on my scooter. So I was able to send these pictures and the interview to my insurance company, and I was well compensated for my poor scooter.
That's a good story. You obviously now you're still at school. So did you able to get time off school, or were you training after school?
No, after school. I trained every evening, competed on Saturday, and had Sundays off.
I wanted to ask you then about your British debut. When did that come?
Right, that was,
And had you left school then?
yes, in July 1960. I was at college in London. So my debut for Great Britain started in 1960. I was selected to represent Great Britain against Northern Ireland, of course, Great Britain and Northern Ireland against Italy. And this was my first international, and it was held in Brighton. I ran in the 200 metres and the 400 metres, or 4 by 100 metres relay. I came second in the 200 metres. Now, I was 25 seconds, and that was not an Olympic record. So they didn't have trials or anything. It was, you had to get the Olympic standard, which was 24.5. So I still hadn't got the Olympic standard. However, I ran 24.5 in the 200 yards event at Welling Athletics Club, held at Goslin Stadium, which was built in 1959. And I clocked 24.3. So there's my Olympic standard. So that's how they, on your past runs, and you had to have the Olympic standard before you were considered.
You must have been at work by then.
Yeah, probably. I worked in Stevenage at Leslie's hairdressers as a hairdresser. So he gave me time off for the Olympics. But on the 13th of August, this is in 1960, I was invited to the British Games, which is an international invitation event at White City. And I was invited to run in the 200 metres and the 4 by 100 relay. And this was the very last opportunity for me to get the Olympic standard in the 200 metres. And we were put up in the Windsor Hotel, and there was a gala dinner in the evening. But unfortunately, I came fourth in the 200 metres.
And was the 200 metres your favourite?
So that's it. No chance. That 200 metres was my favourite rather than the 100. I'd already got the standard in the 100, but I thought I would be going in the 200 metres. So that's all I concentrated on. So I had no chance. So that's it. I thought, no chance. I'm not going to be in the Olympic team. I wasn't disappointed because that's how it goes. But the next morning, after breakfast with my friends, the phone rang and they were asking me to run in Rome for Great Britain in the 100 metres. So, well, I was really excited about this. And this is where I wanted to get hold of my mum and dad, who were at the Houndsditch warehouse buying a TV. So, so I got the hotel to give me the number for Houndsditch warehouse. And I rang them and I said, can I speak to my mum and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Jenner, to tell them that I'd been picked for the 100 metres and to go to Rome. They tannoyed this out to the whole of the house, Houndsditch warehouse, that Mr. and Mrs. Jenner, your daughter has been picked for the Olympics in Rome. I have goose pimples now, when I think about that.
That must have been an announcement to hear, mustn't it?
Yeah, and I was able to get hold of Tony in flight planning, because he was in the Air Force then, and we weren't married, to tell him, because I was just flabbergasted, just over the moon. It's wonderful news. But then we had to work really quickly because I had to go to Simpson's in London, who supplied all our Olympic clothing. So I had to be measured up. And we were going out to Rome on the 27th of August. So I got all my flight details and everything.
How long a gap was it between the trials and your trip to Rome?
Well, that was the beginning of August that I ran in the British Games at White City. So that was the beginning of August, and then the 27th of August. So they had to, we were measured for skirt, blazer, and we wore red hats, and we had a red bag. That was sort of unofficial, and then the official events, we had a pale blue suit with your jacket and pleated skirt that we wore our red hats with, and had white shoes. We were supplied with white gloves, and they were the hat and the blazer and the pale blue suit were embroidered with the Union Jack and the 5 Olympic rings. So that was a very smart outfit. We looked really good.
Did you get much publicity, local press at the time when you got selected?
Well, yes, I did, because I don't know whether I ought to say this, really. Well, they were talking about some masculine females in the British team. And I had a photographer who took photographs of me wherever I ran. And he sent this photograph to the newspapers, and it was on the front of the Daily Sketch, me in my running outfit. And they were talking about somebody in the British team, females, had too many male hormones. So when I arrived in Rome, there were all these photographers around, because they all translated it as that I was the one who had masculine tendencies. So my picture was on all the bookcases around Rome, and it was just unbelievable.
You are listening to another episode in our What Was It Like To series on the Paddock and the Pavilion with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. If you enjoy this show or any of our other episodes, I would love to hear from you. Please leave us a rating and review, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Thank you for your support. So you're heading off to Rome. Had you been abroad or been on an aeroplane before?
No, I hadn't. Unusual. No, I hadn't. I mean, you didn't in those days. We went on package holidays, but we didn't go abroad. So
can you remember when you all got together? Did you all get together as a team to fly out?
Yes. Well, there were 9 women, 9 of us women, and 20 men in the team and 3 officials, and we were all on the aeroplane together. So we all arrived together. And when we arrived in Rome, we were given our passes, which I've still got, a competitive pass, and then bussed to the Olympic Village. It wasn't all the team, because then another lot were sent out a week later. They divided us up. So,
what was it like the first time you were on an aeroplane then?
It was good. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't remember going out. But I remember coming back, because we all passed the menu round for the meal, and we were all signing the menu. So I remember that clearly, but I don't remember the flight out.
Then the Olympic Village, were you all together with all the other athletic competitors?
Yes, I suppose we were. I mean, I met like shot putters and the other competitors. But we were training so hard, we really didn't have time to socialise. Dorothy Hyman and Jenny Smart and I were really good friends. And so we really stuck together and trained. And we were also bussed out to the coast to train up sand dunes.
That must have made it easier. That must have made it easier with being friends with Jenny and Dorothy.
Oh, it did, yes. Yes, we were together a lot of the time. So although I only got through to the quarter-final, Dorothy Hyman won a silver medal, so we were really, really pleased for her.
Did you attend the Olympic ceremony?
No, there was only a certain number who attended that. So I didn't. I got out just after that. And I didn't stay. I think it was probably the medal winners who were in the closing ceremony.
And you said that Harry Wilson was there in Rome.
Yes, because he took me out a couple of times, so that was good. My parents weren't there, though.
Because Harry Wilson wasn't that old, was he?
No, I was thinking, I think he was about 30 when he was training me. because he was a marathon runner as well. Before I joined, I think he was running marathons when I was there at Athletic Club.
Let's talk about the action on the track. Can you remember the day you were in Heat 1 of the 100 metres?
All I remember about that was the noise in the stadium. Everyone cheering. I mean, not necessarily me, but I suppose their country's competitor. And it was a bit nerve-wracking, but it was very, very noisy. And the trouble is, you see, I was very strong and fast, but I wasn't quite fast enough out of the blocks. That was my trouble for the 100 metres, because you've no sooner got out of the blocks than you're at the finish of the race, aren't you? So that was I ran as fast as I could.
Yeah, well, you came fourth in your heat with a time of 12.2 seconds. And the other two British runners, Jenny Smart and Dorothy Hyman, both won their heats.
Yes. Yeah, they were 11 point something, weren't they, I think?
And the gold medal winner, Wilma Rudolph, also won one of the heats. And you also celebrated your birthday, didn't you? Was that?
Yes. Oh, yes, I did. My birthday's on the 30th of August. So, 3 days later, I celebrated my birthday after arriving in Rome. 27, 28, 29, 30. Yes, 3 days.
In the second round, you were in Heat 2 of 4.
Yes.
And you came 6 of 7 in a time of 12.4 seconds.
Yeah. Not very good, is it?
Oh, I shouldn't say that. You're an Olympian, Anne, but
Yes.
Were you disappointed with the result?
Well, I was, because I could run faster than that, over 100 metres, you see. And I don't know, it's just how you are on the day, I suppose. I always liked to be up the front. I always liked to win. Whatever race I ran, I always wanted to win. So I expect I was disappointed that I was. But, I think I was, about 13th best in the world. So 13 better ladies than me, you see.
That's still better than a lot of people. They can't say they ran in the Olympics. Moving forward on the 100 metres, your friend Dorothy Hyman won her semi-final, like Wilma Rudolph, the American athlete. Did you get then chance to watch the semi-final and the final where Dorothy came second?
Second, didn't they? Yes, Dorothy and I, Jenny Smart and I would have been watching that together, because unless we were training for the relay, but no, I would think we were able to watch them. But my memory of that time, unfortunately, is just special things that stand out in your mind. And although Dorothy winning, it doesn't really stand out as much as you. So that might mean we weren't able to be there to see her, and we were training, elsewhere, because you just had to train all the time.
Were you able to watch any of the other events, or were you just training?
No, we didn't watch any of it. We probably weren't allowed in the stadium, you see. So we were outside in the village, and you're bussed to the stadium for your events.
This is the Olympics of Cassius Clay winning a gold medal, Abibi Bikila barefoot winning the marathon, Herb Elliott winning the 1500 metres, Anita Longsborough winning the gold medal in the breaststroke.
Yes, that's right. Well, we didn't see any of that, because you've got to get to these places from the village, and you're transported for your event from the village to the stadiums. So we didn't go to the other places that were swimming, because I would have remembered that. We were probably at the coast running up dunes at that time, or down dunes.
And you came back, and your athletics career ended quite abruptly after that.
Well, it's because as I say, I liked longer races. And at Gosling Stadium, there was the 400 metres. I think it was the athletic club's championship. Yes. And there was a 400 metre race there, which I ran in. And I did it point second outside of the British all-comers record at 400 metres. But the trouble with 400 metres is you have to run as fast as you can for the first 200 metres and then keep that speed up for the next 200 metres. And it was such a grueling race, and I was shattered. I mean, I hadn't trained much for it, but I was really shattered after that. So I had to think, to be an international, they only take 2 people, right? It was the Olympics that 3 people go. So the next year, if I didn't improve my distance, I wouldn't be picked as international. And there was no way I was dropping down from being an international. So I would have to compete in the 400 metres to be international, to play again, run against other countries. And I thought, I don't want to run the 400 metres all the time. 200 metres, yes, but 400 metres all the time, no. So I thought to myself, I'm going to stop now. I reckon I'm at my peak. I don't want to go down the ladder. I'm there, so I'm going to stop. And Ovaltine magazine got in touch with me, would you believe, to ask. They wanted to replace, I think his name was Ken Norris, in the athletics magazine, World Athletics magazine. They wanted to replace him and ask if I would like to do it. So I said, yes, I would. So they paid me, took my photograph, and the caption was, I derived great benefit from drinking Ovaltine. And then I was on Midlands Television, went to Manchester studio, and they filmed me, and I think the title of it was Ovaltine Magazine. I also did a Keep Fit weekly thing for the newspaper in Welwyn Garden City. So I was no longer an amateur, and you couldn't get paid for anything at all. So that was it.
And you were
Finished.
back to hairdressing?
Back to hairdressing. Well, I married Tony.
That was on Christmas Eve, wasn't it? You got married? Yeah.
1960. Oh, I forgot to say that I was a bit disappointed I'd done that, because I was asked to run in the 400 metres in Manchester. And I thought, but no, I'd made the decision, I'm not going to do it. So I didn't run there. But we were married. And so no more training, nothing. And then after 2 years in the Air Force, we were posted to Singapore. Oh, and I took my son out as 6-week-old. And I did fashion modelling out there then. And Tony said, would you like to learn to play golf? So went along to the pro shop to get fitted out. First thing was shoes. There's no way, bearing in mind I'm the age of 22, was I going to wear lace-up shoes. So I never took up golf then.
Did you keep in touch with the fellow athletes after 1960? Because Dorothy she won a silver and a bronze in 1960. She won another bronze in 1964. Yes,
and Anne Packard, she was a year behind me, and she was a friend of mine, and she ran in the 400 and 800, or maybe a bit longer. But you see, because Tony was in the Air Force, we moved away from the to Oxford. That's where we were posted, Abingdon, when we were first married. And I worked in Oxford, and then we went to Singapore, so there wasn't a chance of meeting up with them.
You did get to see Harry Wilson again, though.
Yes, I did, because in 1980, when I was 39 years old and 20 years retired from athletics, I was invited to the anniversary games at Gosling Stadium. I met Harry Wilson, my coach, there for the first time after 20 years. Also, Steve Ovett was there. And so many of my friends were there. And I signed loads of autographs. So I had a really lovely day.
It must have been like being back in the limelight then.
Yes, absolutely. So that was great.
And that was an Olympic year, the year when Steve Ovett won his Olympic gold medal.
There you are, you see. He was a good coach.
You returned to the Olympic spotlight, though, in 2012 when you carried the Olympic torch.
Yes, that was out of the blue. I went to the gym in Swaffham, and Ash there said to me, "There's a chappie wanting your telephone number." So I've got his. Would you like to ring him and see what he wants you to for? So I rang him, and he said, because Breckland wasn't on the national torch carrying route, they wanted to have their own, starting at Swaffham. So would I be prepared to carry the torch, the Breckland torch, heading the parade through Swaffham to Campingland, where they were going to have all exciting races and things like that. So that's what I did. That was quite exciting. And I presented the prizes to the winners. And also a club in Stoke Ferry called the Forget-Me-Nots, they asked if I'd go and give a talk, like I'm doing now, about my life my life altogether, including. So that was lovely. I really enjoyed that.
I guess the locals didn't realise they had an Olympian in their midst.
Nobody knew about that before then. I don't know actually how that chappie found out, because it wasn't something I spoke about. You know, I was into golf now, and I was when I joined Thetford when we came back from overseas, I was a 10 handicapper. So that's not bad for a club golfer. So I just concentrated on playing good golf. But anyway, he found out about it. So that was quite exciting. And of course, I wore this Great Britain, which I'm wearing now, my Great Britain tracksuit with the Olympic rings up here. I wore that when I carried the torch. And it
still fits.
Yes, it's a bit tight.
It is 64 years old.
But no, and I had my personal first aid chappie walk with me as well in case I fell over or anything.
Golf's a real passion of yours now.
Yes, it is. We were posted out to Germany. So I was ladies captain twice at RAF Germany because we happened to do 2 tours there. Then I came to Thetford as a 10 handicapper. So the county asked me to play for the second team. And I was ladies captain there in 1999. And then Swaffham became 18 holes just after that. So we joined Swaffham, and I've been ladies captain there in 2012. And in 2022, it was our centenary year, which was absolutely fantastic. And I was ladies captain then. So lots of dignitaries came. Peter Alice came to Swaffham. Do you know Peter Alice, the sports commentator?
Yeah, I've heard of him very well.
Well, he's a very, very famous. Yeah. Well, he came. So as ladies captain, I was able to introduce him to everyone it was a charity lunch. So I was able to introduce him and sat next to him for lunch. Lovely man he was.
How often do you play golf now?
Well, now I'm in my 80s now, you see, so I've given up being competitive, unfortunately.
That must be hard for you.
It's difficult, yeah, it was. It was. But you see, there are younger ladies and probably better than me, so I just play social golf and friendly matches. Oh, and I'm ladies president now at Swaffham Golf Club. So I do have duties now and then.
Just going back then to the Olympics, will you be watching the Paris Olympics, which begins on the 26th of July?
Yes, I'll be watching it. And every time I do watch the Olympics, I feel very envious, because I think, what if I hadn't given up? What if I'd carried on in the sport? I mean, you can't look back, but I know what they feel like, don't I?
What about final reflections then on being an Olympic athlete?
Well, I think I don't know. As you are one, it's nice when people ask you about it, and you asking me to do this podcast has been really fantastic, because I've spent a whole day looking at all my memories and everything, newspaper cuttings and everything like that, which I don't do, you see. So looking back, it was fantastic. And Tony keeps telling me how great it was that I ran in the Olympics. But I think when you actually do it, you don't think it's that great, really.
Your family must be very proud of you.
Yes. Yeah, so my brother was. Well, everybody was, but my brother was particularly so. He emigrated to Australia, and so whenever we went over there, we always told all his friends that I ran in the Olympics. So that was talking with the Australians, and they were asking me how I got on. So it was good, but it was hard work. It was 5 years. I didn't start running to run in the Olympics. I ran because I could run, and every race that I ran, I wanted to win. The only reason I kept running, because I won these races. And I don't know. And I suppose, well, that year, 1960, was the first time I thought I would be eligible for the Olympics. It wasn't my aim when I started. It was just because I won, and I enjoyed going to all the different places where I ran and meeting people. And so it was a lovely surprise when I did run in the Olympics in August.
I can tell how proud you are yourself of what you did. Your parents must have been so pleased for you.
Oh, yes, they were over. Yes. And I've got a lovely photograph of my Nana with me in my pale blue Olympic outfit. She was proud of me as well. Well, all my relatives were, but my mum and dad, my dad especially, because he was an athletic type of person, sporty. So he was pleased. That's why he got me a coach, you see, because he could see the potential. And Harry certainly could when I started running.
Well, Harry Wilson certainly went on to great heights, coaching.
Yes.
Steve Ovett and, as you say, Zola Bird. Thank you very much, Anne, for joining me on this What Was It Like To programme. And thank you again for recalling your Olympic memories.
Well, thank you for asking me, Stephen. It's been brilliant.
Sports Social Podcast Network.